So first off, let's meet Frank. Frank leads the development team at Jama Software. He's a major contributor in the design and development of the JIRA Connector, and he doubles as the primary admin of the JIRA Connector for synchronizing Jama's own production instances of Contour and JIRA. So you can say that he eats his own dog food. He has experience in software development, which spans over 20 years. He also holds a degree in operations research from the George Washington University and a bachelor's in math from the University of Virginia. And as it says here, when he's not coding, he's an avid cyclist and purveyor of local microbrews in Portland, Oregon, which is where he's based out of. So with that, Frank, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Morgan, for that glowing introduction. I didn't realize I had all that stuff going on in my background. So I want to thank everyone for tuning into the webinar. And as Morgan said, I'm Frank Sharon, and I'm the development team lead at Jama. And I'm going to be talking about the Contour JIRA connector, and I'll probably slip and just call it the JIRA connector, but this is the, just to avoid confusion, this is the connector that connects our Contour application with JIRA. And we're really excited to have the Contour JIRA connector featured as the Atlassian plugin of the month. And so as Morgan had mentioned, I've been a Contour user since I've been at Jama for the last year or so, and I've been a JIRA user for many years before that. And so I also got a chance to develop, contribute to the development of the JIRA connector. And now I'm a power user of the JIRA connector as we use JIRA and Contour in-house. That we use the Contour to manage our to figure out what we're going to be building and what's coming up next, and do all of our planning, and then we use JIRA for the development management and organizing our agile practice around that. So I have a pretty unique perspective on things, and so I'm pretty happy to kind of share a demonstration of how one way to do one way to use the JIRA connector to connect both Contour and JIRA. So a little full disclosure, we have just a few slides we need to get through, and then we'll get into the good stuff, which is the demo of the apps. And really wanted to, for this slide, just focus on drivers behind the connector, and this is hopefully what I'll be able to show through the demo, which is one, we want to be able to save time and money, and this is obviously something that we all want. And the JIRA connector gets items from Contour into JIRA and keeps them synced without having to go through this manual process that could be error prone, and costly. And then we want to keep teams connected. This connects the product planning team and the development team and gives them a window into the other team's world, while allowing them to work primarily in the tool that works best for them. So they can, organizations can adopt a best of breed approach. In this case, Contour works best for the product planning team, and JIRA might work best for the development team. And then the third thing is just by seamlessly getting requirements that are ready for development into JIRA, that enables the development team to use a tool that enables them to build it using lightweight agile processes. So those are the main drivers. Move on to the next slide, and this is a really busy slide, and I'll let folks read this on their own, and later on, for the folks that are downloading this, they can read it in all its great detail. But the main point of this is that every org has their own special way to do product planning. That everyone has a unique process for doing that. The bottom line is, if you are doing product planning and definition and are engaged in these types of activities, then Contour should be the tool for you. So if you're figuring out ways to innovate your product, if you're deciding what to build next based on business needs and customer requests, and defining exactly how it should look and work in the product, if you're planning releases for the product, if you're tracking and managing changes and doing impact analysis during the product evolution, then you should be in Contour. And Contour provides this platform that and capabilities to support these activities And you can read sort of the list, but it's a centralized repository of product intelligence and promotes collaboration and conversation, and allows teams to respond and manage change. And as you can see at the bottom, we have the integration with JIRA, which is what we're talking about. Helps connect tools as well that the various teams are using. So we know that product planning teams have one specific set of activities and challenges for defining and planning out a product. And also, likewise, the development teams have a different set of activities and challenges in building the product. And so there's a tendency for these teams to get siloed just on their own. And then working in different tools sometimes adds to and reinforces these silos that are created. So JIRA Connector, the Contour JIRA Connector is intended to help break those silos and barriers, again, by giving each team a view into the other team's world, but without making each team having to, while still allowing the teams to work within the tool that makes them most effective. So I think that's it for the slides, actually. So as promised, we only had a few slides, and just wanted to give a little bit of a background before we launch into it. One other thing I'll say is that if you hear a little pounding in the background, I think that there's monsters in the attic above me. I think they're doing some construction, so I apologize if you do hear that, but that's what's going on. The demo, or the point of the demo, is to illustrate one simple approach to using the Contour JIRA connector to connect with a typical product management process with a typical agile development process, and demonstrate how you might use the JIRA connector. So to set the context of this, we'll just have a fictional company called Move Fitness Incorporated. That's our organization, and we've recently launched a special Velo product that will revolutionize the aquatic fitness domain. And the project that we're working on now is the second generation of the Velo product, where we have a new development iteration cycle coming up, or a sprint is approaching, and we've been working on some capabilities for adding to this second version of the Velo product. We'll have our analyst, who's Waylon Smithers in Contour, working in Contour, and then we'll have a developer X in JIRA. She's a developer who's getting ready for the next sprint. And I kind of think of this as like those old TV commercials where you have the split screen with one person eating the chocolate and the other person eating the peanut butter, and then they all come together to make the goodness of peanut butter and chocolate combo. So if I was slicker, I could actually show that, but I can just only describe it. So you'll just have to imagine. And with that, I will jump into these worlds that I just described. And I will start with, let me slide this over. I realize that there's a couple things that I'm bound to make a mistake on. One is I'm bound to confuse JIRA and Jama, and the second thing is I'm bound to say Contour when I'm at JIRA. But if you'll bear with me, I'll try and get through it without too much confusion. This is Contour, and our analyst Waylon Smithers is in Contour right now, and you can see in the activity stream the recent conversations that have been going on as use cases and test cases, and the various product planning activities have been taking place. Over on the left, I'll jump over to the Explorer and show that we've broken up our items and created sets that meet our basic process at Move Fitness Incorporated. So we have in our simple process, we have feature requests that are come from a variety of different sources. They can come from support tickets and what we're hearing from customers. Also, call reports, or as we go and talk to prospective customers, we can look at what wowed them and what didn't work so well as we define and come up with a vision for what we want to do next. And those can feed into features downstream that define at a high level the stories that we want to add into our VeloTube product to meet the business needs and meet the needs as articulated in the feature request. Further downstream from the features are requirements that are fully, more fully detailed and elaborated definitions of what it is or how it is that the product can take care of the stories, and they're grouped according to similar capabilities. So my account, there's several, well, there's a handful of account-related requirements and goals as well. There's a handful related to the goals and so forth. Further downstream from the requirements, we might further refine and provide another level of granularity below the requirements, where we define some use cases that are related to the various requirements. And also downstream from the requirements, you could have test cases as well. Because Move Fitness as an organization has decided that all release management will be done within and inside of Contour, it makes sense to have defects as well in Contour. We realize that defects also can be tracked in JIRA, and that's also that's just a different processes can be done in many different ways through these various tools. But in this case, it makes sense for this organization to have the defects as well, because as they're doing release management, and I'll jump over to the release tab to give you a sense of that, and the releases here are sprints are treated as separate releases just for the purposes of planning out what requirements and defects will be associated with those sprints. Then you can track and keep track of and manage and plan for what belongs in those sprints according to mixing the defects and the requirements. So you can use Contour for release planning, and in this case, the folks at Move Fitness are planning on having 3 sprints, and the first one is approaching. So the next step for the team is to set up a review of the requirements that are ready to that are in draft mode or are ready for review, and do basically a sprint planning type session where estimates are provided, and we look at how long the sprint will last, and we may look at the velocity, for instance, of the team, and then based on that, figure out what requirements will be committed to for the sprint. And then there'll be further possibly prioritizations and so forth. But at the end of this planning session, we will have approved requirements for development that are associated with this sprint, and at that point we want those requirements to get pushed from Contour and into JIRA so that the development team can get started organizing themselves around the task of building those requirements out as part of that sprint. And so one possible way to do that would be the development team would pick up the requirements and as tasks in JIRA, and then break those up into subtasks and do further estimates, and then use those tasks to be part of the big task board that they manage. Either it's a physical task board, they could be using Greenhopper to facilitate the management of the various tasks and to get the burn down charts automatically calculated for them. So that's kind of the basic flow that this organization wants to follow, and I will just jump quickly over to the JIRA side. This is Developer X, and she's looking at the Sprint 1, version of this Velo project, and really there's nothing terribly interesting here because there are no items right now that are no issues that are under this sprint, because we haven't the sprint hasn't started yet, and we haven't approved the requirements yet for development. But this is a glimpse into how things are set up in the world of JIRA for the developers. And So we will now think about and talk about what it takes now to kind of connect both Contour and JIRA to do the kind of integration that I just described. So in order to do that, what's kind of nice about the way the solution was architected is that in order to activate and get started in JIRA Connector, there's no need to drop in or additional wars or libraries and restart servers either on the JIRA side or the Contour side. There's just a few configuration settings. I skipped a couple steps and added some custom fields to make it to synchronize a little bit more information, and I'll show that in a few minutes what the result of that is. But I didn't want to take the extra time for all that configuration. But it doesn't require changing or bouncing any servers, which is always a good thing. And once you've got your license that activates the JIRA Connector module within Contour, then you're free to get started with defining and setting up the JIRA Connector. Let's see, I've taken the liberty of getting started on the let's see, I'll set this up to the JIRA user. I've taken the liberty of getting started on some of the connection settings. So the JIRA URL is just simply the URL that you point your browser to when you go to JIRA. The JIRA user and password it has to be the user credentials of a of somebody with administrative privileges in JIRA, and then the Contour user is just meant to is used by the JIRA connector in Contour to this is the owner of the activities that occur during the synchronization that the JIRA connector does. We provide scheduling of the JIRA connector. So what this says is that every so often this connector will wake up and run and either push items from Contour into JIRA, or it'll, for those that have already been associated to items in JIRA, it will look for updates and synchronize the items, the associated items on either side if there have been any updates. And it does this according to this whatever schedule you set up. In this case, we have 60 minutes set up, just because the way this organization is working and for the fields that are being and the kinds of data that are being synchronized, that kind of data won't change so frequently that doing every hour isn't such a big deal. It's probably just about the right amount of refreshing. But you may find that you'd want more real-time or close to real-time synchronization, and you could lower or increase the frequency or lower the time between synchronizations. And for those of you that just love and talk and speak in cron, you can come up with fancy cron expressions to accomplish to define a more complex scheduling strategy. So, and we provide this nice test connection. I want to just click it just to make sure I have everything set up perfectly for this demo. And it looks like we are able to talk to JIRA, and I will cancel out of that. And the next step is that we want to establish a mapping between the project that we're working out of in Contour, which is the Vela 2 project, and pick a project in JIRA, which we only have one, which is the Velo project that I showed you when we were looking at briefly at the JIRA, what the developer X user was saying in JIRA. And what this does is it says that we will be defining mappings for sets underneath these projects and items within sets underneath these projects. And when you create an item in JIRA, it will create it under this JIRA project. So we will save and close that. And we need to define for which sets we want to do the integration between Contour and JIRA. We don't want all the sets necessarily to be mapped between the two sides. In this case, as I had mentioned before in the background, we're interested in just integrating and pushing over and keeping synchronized the requirements. So we will map our requirements in Contour to the task to a task in JIRA. And reason for making a task is that then the developers in JIRA can turn around and break those up into subtasks, which can then be aggregated and under this larger task in JIRA. And we will enable bidirectional synchronization of comments, just because we in this case, the organization, it makes sense to allow that conversation to go back and forth and be able to see that conversation in either app. Because we're not interested in synchronizing and pushing all items, all requirements into JIRA, but only those requirements that have been approved for development, we will specify a criteria which will tell the JIRA connector when it runs that only do this for the items that match this query. And so we have a pretty standard query language that we can use to define this this filter. In this case, it's where the status is approved. We have several different kinds of approved statuses, so so I'll use the star to say anytime it's approved in the approved state in Contour, then we want the JIRA connector to keep things synchronized. And we will save and close and now we have the sets ready for synchronization. The final step and it's the most complicated step, so I'll warn you now, this is the busiest of all the UI, but it provides a degree of freedom that's really nice, because now you can define the different fields for those different items in Contour and in JIRA that you want to populate and keep synchronized across the applications. So what you can do is kind of increase the visibility in the window that somebody in Contour would have by adding additional fields that pull in data from JIRA and let the analyst that's in Contour see a little bit more about what's going on without ever having to go into JIRA. So for instance, we will, and out of the box you get the name and description already set up to be synchronized. We will add a few more, and because JIRA and Contour make it easy to add custom fields, so many of these are represented as custom fields, or were set up using custom fields, I should say. So we're going to want to set up priority for synchronization as well. We want priority to be changed, whether you're using Contour or JIRA. So we'll make that bidirectional. I'll talk a little bit more about the bidirectional synchronization mode. We only offer bidirectional for updating items that are already associated between JIRA and Contour. The initial creation is only one direction. We only create items from Contour into JIRA, but once it's in JIRA and they are associated, then any updates can be synchronized in a bidirectional manner. That's just the first step, or the first design that we had was just to get items from Contour into JIRA, and future plans are to allow users also to be able to have a way to specify certain items that aren't in Contour yet, but are in JIRA, to get those pushed from JIRA into Contour as well. But in this case, what this means is that once the item's been pushed into JIRA, if the priority fields change in either JIRA or Contour, the other side will get updated. And if during the same synchronization cycle they've been changed in both JIRA and the Contour side, we can define who wins the conflict. And in this case, we're setting up Contour to win that. So whatever was set up in Contour would override what was set up in JIRA, because Contour always wins, right? Just kidding. So we'll also a little bit about the status also. That's a kind of a trickier field too. Status in Contour has a status and JIRA has a status, and they represent different workflows. Contour, if you're in Contour, an analyst is going to go through set of workflow or one workflow, and if you're a developer in JIRA, you're going to be working through a different kind of workflow. And so the states of that and the status kind of represents the state that you're in when you're in that workflow. It only really makes sense, the contour status only makes sense within the context of what you're doing in Contour, and similarly, the status in JIRA kind of only makes sense within JIRA, so it doesn't make sense to synchronize the statuses together. We just created a bucket for putting the, let's see, a status in Contour. We created a bucket in JIRA to hold the Contour status, so we can see as a developer maybe what the if the status has changed at all in the workflow, give us an idea that maybe things are changing to the item that we're working on, and maybe we should talk to somebody. The assign to, we're just going to skip right now. We're not going to assign to in Contour. Sprint planning estimate, that would be the original estimate that during the sprint planning session that can help kind of guide the developer who picks up the task and breaks it up into subtasks and can see whether or not the initial estimate when doing the sprint planning really holds or not, and can raise a flag if it turns out that estimate is way off. And we'll make that we'll make that one way from Contour because it only it originated from Contour, and we'll do that also with the status in Contour. That's only going to be coming from Contour. The status in JIRA, likewise, we're going to put the status of the task in JIRA, and we're going to populate this special field that we've set up in Contour. Again, this gives the analyst an idea of how things are going or where things are at for the requirement without having to get into JIRA. Likewise, for the assign to in JIRA, we'll establish we'll map these two fields together. So once again, the analyst may be interested in finding out which developer is working on that particular requirement. And I'll make these one way into Contour for both of these fields. We'll also map the release with the fixed version, and since Move has decided that they're going to be doing all release planning inside of Contour, there'll be one way from Contour. There's some kind of housekeeping fields that also get synchronized where you'll get in Contour for free this JIRA URL that's a nice shortcut into the JIRA item, and we can set it up so that the Contour item URL also appears in JIRA for a handy-dandy shortcut into the item in Contour if the developer wanted to jump into Contour and start to poke around. And so we'll make that one way from Contour as well. So I think got everything set up the way in a way that makes sense. There's a little additional work here to get these set up, but once you have it set up, then from now on you don't really have to go into this step as the JIRA connector does its job, constantly synchronizing. So we'll save and close this. And so the connector is all ready to go. We can jump back into the world of Waylon Smithers, our analyst, and we can imagine that we have gotten to the day where we're ready to review the requirements and decide which requirements are going to be committed to for our sprint coming up. So we get the whole team involved. This isn't just the analyst, but everyone will sit in a room and figure out, break these things up into how some rough tasks and start to come up with estimates and do various games to come up with the estimates or points that it will take to get this done, and then we'll figure out how many of these that we can commit to in the time allowed by our sprint. And so I'm not going to go through each one and edit each one as to simulate what's happening. Actually, let me do it I'll skip this one. We'll say that create a goal is the one where we'll say the sprint planning estimate. After that, we said maybe 24 hours to get it done, 3 days. And let's take a look at the create a goal. Maybe we'll include a quick comment to say that 24-hour based on 12 hours for UI and 12 for backend. I can't type today. It's too cold. And we'll say that. And then as a result, we go through each and every one of those items similarly, and maybe we'll do some things with priorities. But at the end of it, let's say we've committed to doing everything here except for delete a goal. So we will associate all of them with our sprint, and then we will mark them all approved for development. And so then the next time the JIRA connector wakes up and wants to throw a lasso around any items that match its criteria, which is anything marked for approval, it will do that as scheduled. But we don't want to have to wait, and I don't want to put you all through the grief of waiting 60 minutes for that to happen. So I will simulate moving the clock ahead, and I have this manual synchronization now button that I can use to make it do that right now. So it's doing its thing, and hopefully if we've got everything connected and set up right, when we go over as a developer into our JIRA world, the developer X now sees that there are issues that have been created under the Velo project and part of the Sprint 1 accounts and goals fixed version. So if we, and I apologize, I really love the new 4.0, but I'm still fumbling my way around it a little bit. So I may make some missteps, or it may take me a while to find the screen that I'm looking for, but it just takes practice. So anyhow, this is the list of items. They should look very vaguely familiar to everyone because these are the same requirements that we had marked ready and approved for development. And we can see that the priorities made it across as well, and all the names came across as well. So let's just pick create a goal and say that that's going to be assign this issue to me. I'm developer X. And I'm going to jump into that goal, or into that, I'm sorry, task. I get a little more information here, and maybe this is enough to get me going. As I try and break this up into subtasks, I also get the information about where that estimate came from. So if I'm looking at this, and I'll be reminded of, yeah, this is why we came up with that 24. And then as I break things up into the subtasks to really get this done, I can use it as to see if we were in the right ballpark. I also have that friendly URL if I wanted to jump up into Contour and get additional context. So I'll simulate clicking that, and that will take us into this create a goal. This is what the developer would see as well. And I don't want to mix the different user sessions because it's just too much for me to get my head around switching those different roles. But as a developer, the developer could see this very information. They can review the relationships and look at the upstream feature to get context, so that they can see a little bit more about what the higher level story was that this is a part of. Further, you can look at the downstream items and see, oh yeah, there's a test case being created, or a test case that's been created, and use cases that have been created, and I can that can maybe help give ideas or provide information that will be helpful for as I test this out and as I build, as I implement this feature or this requirement. So as a developer, this is very helpful to get all this context at my fingertips, and then I can jump back into my safe world of JIRA and start to do things like subtask this out. So let me say I'm starting the progress on this, and maybe add some subtasks. I'll just add maybe, I'll just add one task just for grins right now, because it takes me a while to type these things in, and just say, let's suppose I say it's going to take 4 days to do this. Normally I would have, normally of course we'd break these tasks up into something that would be more like 1 day or 4 hours or something, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll um, just abbreviate things and just say, have the do it take care of that. And one thing that becomes very clear is that now you've got 4 days, and we originally had planned for 3 days, so something has to give, and maybe you can add a comment here to say, hey, it looks like it'll take longer, a day longer. So add to the conversation there, comment, and so we'll add that. And then another hour may pass, or maybe it's 5 minutes if you set it up to be a little bit more frequent, and the JIRA connector starts running. And now I'm jumping back as Wayland, Smithers, and Contour, and I can take a look at the filters maybe, and see in the approved for development what's going on. And I say, oh, I see that create a goal is in progress and developer X is working on it. Well, that's great. And I also have my shortcuts into the world of JIRA if I want to brave the venture forth into the world of JIRA. In this case, the analysts don't have accounts in JIRA because we don't want to scare them. So they have as much information as useful to them. Just knowing that it's in progress is good. And if they dive into the create goal, they may, as they look in the activity stream, they can see what developer X wrote, which is it looks like it's going to take a day longer. And so this might be the time where the next daily stand-up, pull in Wayland Smithers to talk about what it's going to take, or to something's got to give now if we've got a day longer for this. Maybe we have to deprioritize some things or drop some things from the sprint. So that's kind of useful information. And then maybe say Smithers has talked to a customer and gotten some really critical information about that has to change. Like this customer said absolutely that we have to add something called a level, which is level 1 through 12. Wayland Smithers can make that change and move it to approved but under review, because we have to review this with the product management team, and hit close and commit. Maybe even add a comment that says customers demand levels, and save and close. And then again, through the miracle of me being able to move time, I can hit the button and just pretend that an hour has passed, and let's reload the developer X her view into the world, and we'll see, oh, customer demand levels. What's going on here in the comments? Maybe I'll look at the activity stream. She'll see that the JIRA admin has, so that's the connector has gone in and made some changes to some fields. If she looks at the changes to see that, oh boy, the status has changed to approved under review, that means that there's been some changes to the description. Looks like things aren't totally set in stone here. Again, something to raise in the daily at the daily scrum or stand up, whatever you want to call it. So that pretty much just covers. I wanted to show changes in JIRA, changes in Contour, and how those get synchronized and updated to present to the analysts in Contour the JIRA changes, the changes in JIRA, and developers in JIRA, what's going on, a lens into what's going on in the product planning world as well. So that is pretty much all I wanted to show, and I will. So I just have I lied a little bit. I have one last well, a couple closing slides, but you can read this on your own. But we released JIRA Connector this year. We've gotten some really good feedback, and the takeaway from this is that if you're using Contour, or if you want to use Contour, Contour you can get a free evaluation of the Contour JIRA connector, and try it out and give us your feedback and let us know what you think. Tell us what things you'd like to see improved in it. We welcome this because we're planning on moving forward with the next iteration of the Contour JIRA connector. And for more information, here's a friendly URL for you to go and pick up more information on the JIRA connector and the Jama Contour application. And so that's the show.
All right, sounds good. I will take the control back over, and as I said, as this is going through, if you guys have questions, please chat them in, and we'll go ahead and start answering those questions right now. Here are some questions I have for you guys. You mentioned Greenhopper, yet you didn't show it in the demo. Does the Contour connector work with Greenhopper?
Yes, yes. In fact, we have Greenhopper in-house. We do use as well. I didn't want to show Greenhopper because I didn't want to. It took a bit long just to go through this kind of cycle, or go through a couple of cycles with the JIRA connector synchronization, and I thought that just adding Greenhopper would further cloud what's going on. So just to keep things simple, I didn't show the Greenhopper interface, but certainly will work with Greenhopper. In fact, it works really well. Instead of having to print these subtasks out and put them up on a wall and having to manage those, which is what we used to do. Greenhopper just makes it a lot more automatic, and during your daily stand-up, you can just drag and drop and just make quick changes to the item as people are talking about them, and then your burn down chart just comes for free. So absolutely, we support Greenhopper.
Okay. And does Contour provide a way to manage or report on resource allocation? For example, the amount of time a user is allocated to different tasks and when?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Currently there's a limitation in that we use the SOAP services API provided by JIRA, and currently there is no progress information, such as how much time is what the original time was that's rolled up when it adds up all the different subtasks and accumulates them at the task level. You don't have that information or the actual time remaining information, so we don't really have all the information to get the kind of progress that you'd want, which is % done versus % that's left to be done. So as soon as that's available through the API, or we find another way to kind of get access to that data, then we'll include that, so that folks, again, analysts inside of Contour will. That's something that they've been requesting, or that they're seeking out, is getting a sense of how far done is this thing and how much more is left.
Yeah, so right now it looks like the JIRA progress it doesn't show up in Contour, but it is the other way around. Is that right?
Say that one more time, please.
Is the JIRA progress, can it be displayed in Contour?
No, so right now the JIRA progress cannot be displayed in Contour.
Yeah. And then I guess maybe along the same lines, that you mentioned, you kind of elaborated a little bit on the sync between Contour and JIRA as being bidirectional. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so let's see if I can take another crack at that. The initial version of JIRA Connector that we released is meant to handle the case of pushing items that match a certain criteria from Contour and getting those into JIRA, and then once they're in JIRA, to keep things in sync. But since then, it's been pretty clear from how customers are using it and how we've been using it, that it's be very useful also to identify and come up with a criteria for items in JIRA that we want to push into Contour and create in Contour, and then keep those items synchronized. So whether that's bugs, for instance, a lot of folks are using JIRA as a main repository for all their bugs, which makes sense. Then you might want to push those bugs into Contour so that you can do the release planning with those very same bugs. So that's something that now that has become a high priority thing for the next version of our JIRA connector will be something that we address in a future release.
Okay. And then here was a question. How long has Contour been commercial, or how long has it been around on the market?
Oh boy. So Contour has been around for 3.5 years, but I think I've been saying that for I think the last 2 or 3 months. So it's getting probably close to 4 years that Contour has been on the market, and we have some pretty exciting things for next year planned for it. So look for those things coming out in 2010.
All right, sounds good. And I think that's it. Does anyone else have any other questions? If so, please chat them in right now. As it is, there are no more questions popping through the. I'll just give it a second. But yeah, that was an awesome demo. Thank you guys for the time for doing the demonstration of your product.
Oh, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, and thanks to everyone for tuning in and staying awake, hopefully.
Yeah. That's right. That's why we record these things.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, there was no more questions. So again, I would like to say thank you. Here's some contact information for those watching. You can always reach me at webinars@Atlassian.com, and you can reach Frank at FCHARRON@JamaSoftware.com. And as I said, this is being recorded, and it will be posted to Atlassian.com/TV. I should get that up later today, definitely by tomorrow. And just a few more upcoming webinars. I don't have the complete details yet on these webinars coming up in January, but definitely in January we're going to have a Voice of the Customer with Zend, and then we're also going to have our plugin of the month with Oracy. And you can keep track of what events, not only webinars, but also user groups, conferences, trade shows, down there at the bottom at Atlassian.com/about/events. So with that, thanks a lot, Frank, and thank you guys over at Jama. That was awesome, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, take care, everybody.
All right, bye now.
Bye.